There are many different career paths that you can take in the business analysis profession. Today we're going to talk about 5 different career paths that you can take, 2 of which are technology focused, and 2 of which are business focused, and then the business analysis professional, which is a good mixture of both. So before we get into the technology side of things, I want to look at a quote by Carly Fiorina, and it says the goal is to turn data into information and information into insight. And that really is the role of the next 2 positions that we're going to look at. The first position is a data analyst, and that's on the technology side of things. So a data analyst manages and analyzes data. So what does that mean? So they look for redundancies and inconsistencies within data to make sure that the organization has the most accurate and effective data to use in their daily operations and projects. Data analysts also have to mine data and reformat it if they do find some of those redundancies or inconsistencies. Data analysts also interpret data to see if there's any trends and patterns, and then from there they create reports that effectively communicate those trends or patterns to the executive leadership team and to potential project teams that could be using that information. While they're analyzing the data and finding those trends and patterns, they're also able to identify improvement opportunities, such as process improvement or system modifications that would need to be done. Data analysts share their data insights with the project team as far as what data has the organization already collected and information from that data that would be important to the team. This way the project team doesn't have to recreate anything, and they already have a lot of good information from the data that the business has collected. Data analysts also work to design and maintain databases, meaning that they fix coding errors or data-related problems. Some things that a data analyst might need are technical skills such as SQL, R programming, Python, along with good Excel skills and knowledge of a data visualization software such as Tableau or something else. Data analysts also need strong math and statistics background in order to gather, measure, organize, and analyze all of their data. The next job we're going to look at is a business intelligence analyst, and this is also on the technology side of things. So some things that a business intelligence analyst does is manage data. So they maintain data and the reports that come from the data, meaning that they maintain the data sources, metrics, reports, dashboards, and then from there, they look at all of those things and they analyze the results. So business intelligence analysts support the analytics team to help analyze those results, the data sources, and help that team to forecast for the future. Business intelligence analysts also transform data into those insights that can drive business value. Similar to data analysts, they also identify trends. So with identifying trends, they can see things that might help other departments, managers, or executives to make business decisions and to help improve processes within organizations. And some things that a business intelligence analyst might need is programming, data modeling, analytical thinking, and problem-solving skills. The next quote that I want to look at is by Albert Einstein, and it says, "We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them." So the next rules that we're going to look at need to keep this in mind while they're facilitating projects and ensuring projects are successful. These roles are on the business side of things, and the first one is a business process analyst. So business process analysts focus a lot on process improvement. So essentially looking at business objectives and big picture and considering what those business objectives are so that they can identify areas and processes which could use improvements. They work with both the business side and the IT side and any other departments that could be in an organization to help design new processes and solve process-related problems. Business process analysts do a lot of process mapping, so they map existing processes and help design future state process flows, and then they analyze those workflows to find areas which might have a hole or could use some improvement, or that could potentially be automated. So they spend a lot of time researching processes, observing subject matter experts, collecting data, and analyzing that information. Business process analysts have a lot of cross-departmental functions. They have to interpret business requirements for the IT staff. They also have to interpret business requirements for the business staff, and make sure that everybody understands what the requirements really are. They also facilitate the process workshops. So they have to elicit requirements, they have to meet with subject matter experts and stakeholders, they help monitor project progress, they measure and provide feedback on new processes once they are implemented and how those new processes are performing. And if adjustments need to be made, typically they will help with those. Some things that a business process analyst might need is experience with an ERP system, which is an enterprise resource planning system, and companies use this to manage day-to-day activities such as accounting, supply chain, project management. One example would be Epicor. My experience with Epicor, we used it to input all of our project information, dollar values, shipments, invoices, payments, orders for vendors, and it got as specific as what parts were going to be used on what window. So it got very specific to project information. Another thing that business process analysts might need experience with is a CRM system, which is a customer relationship management system, and companies use this to manage relationships and interactions with customers and prospective customers. One example would be Salesforce. My experience with Salesforce, we used it to input all of our projects that we potentially might get or that we were looking at, and we could track every conversation with a customer, phone call, email, whatever it may be. Some skills that a business process analyst might need, in addition to ERP and CRM software, is experience with business intelligence software, or just business intelligence skills, such as retrieving and analyzing data, how to create reports and metrics from that data. Business process analysts also need to be able to see the big picture of an organization and really understand what those business objectives are. The next business-related job that we're going to look at is a project manager. Project managers are responsible for project success, meaning that they're responsible for the timeline of the project and ensuring that the project stays on track, making sure that the project meets the objectives that were set up by the project team, allocating resources to work on the project, and helping eliminate obstacles that the team might come up against. Project managers work very closely with the project team and the business analyst. They help identify the requirements, establish the objectives for the project. They're also the key communicator with the project sponsor and with management. Project managers and business analysts work very closely together throughout the life cycle of the project to make sure that there are no obstacles, and when obstacles do come up, to make sure that they can be overcome. The last job we're going to look at is an actual business analyst. Business analysts have a lot of work to do during project setup, so they interview subject matter experts and stakeholders to elicit information that can help identify business requirements. They're then responsible to take all of that information and turn it into actual business requirements and project scope and objectives. They need to ensure that the project has detailed information about processes, data, business rules, and that the requirements are as detailed as they can be. They use information from data or from data analysts to identify problems and propose solutions. Business analysts are responsible for project success because they're the main manager of the requirements and making sure that a project is completed according to the requirements. They also are the main facilitator of a project team, ensuring that there's collaboration, and people stay focused on the project objectives, and that the project is staying within scope. And if there is some scope creep, they're making sure that those things get set to the side and can be addressed in a different project or in a different meeting. Business analysts have a lot of cross-departmental functions. They have to translate subject matter expert information and requirements so that everyone on the team and outside of the team can understand them. They also work to implement the project solutions that are identified. So they work with the IT department and the business department to test and monitor that implementation and get feedback. The last quote that I want to look at is by Tom Robbins, and it says, "Our similarities bring us to a common ground. Our differences allow us to be fascinated by each other." So the positions that we looked at had a lot of similarities and differences. Sometimes the differences we have can create the most exciting and collaborative teams because conversations are sparked that can only happen when you have people in the room that have various strengths and weaknesses. So let's look at some of those differences and similarities. So the big differences are the software skills, detail-oriented, and subject matter experts. So on the technology side of things, they have a lot of software skills. They need to be able to analyze that data, pull the data, create reports from it, and really turn it into the information that the business side uses. The technology side also needs to be very detail-oriented, and they need to be a subject matter expert in their area of knowledge, or work to become one. On the business side of things, you need to have a lot of soft skills, because you're in charge of communication and ensuring that a project team is collaborating. And you're eliciting a lot of information from different people, so you need to be able to communicate with people from all backgrounds. On the business side, you also need to have a good idea of what the big picture is of the organization so that you can correctly identify project objectives. On the business side, you also need to be able to translate cross-departmentally, meaning that you need to make sure that IT and business are understanding each other because they have very different vocabulary and ways of communicating. So while there are differences, there are also many similarities. On the technology side, you still have to have soft skills because you need to be able to communicate what you find to the project team. You also, while you're detail-oriented, you have to be able to see the big picture because you need to be able to identify some problems that could be solved. And if you don't see the overall big picture of what the organization is trying to do, you might miss something. You also need to be a good problem solver on the technology side because you need to be able to identify those problems within the data and the metrics that are pulled and be able to identify something that could be fixed. On the business side, you also need to have software skills. Sometimes you might not have a data analyst to give you the information that you need, and you have to be able to pull that information yourself. Or they give you too much information or too little, and you have to adjust it from there. And on the business side, while you need to be big picture oriented, you also need to be detail oriented because you need to create very detailed requirements and project objectives. And of course, on the business side, you also need to be a good problem solver and ensuring that everyone is working together to solve those business-related problems and fixing those processes. So I want to leave you with a quote by Alexander Graham Bell that says, "Great discoveries and improvements invariably involve the cooperation of many minds." Just meaning that collaboration within these project teams and between the technology and business side is the key to making sure that all of your projects succeed.